In September 1958, 60,000 people in Fresno, California opened their mailboxes and found a small plastic card they hadn't asked for, didn't expect, and had no idea would change the financial world forever. Within 90 days, Bank of America was hemorrhaging money it couldn't account for and couldn't stop losing. The tool it had just invented was already destroying it. To understand how a bank could do something so reckless and call it a strategy, you have to understand Bank of America in 1958. It was the largest bank in the world by deposits, built on the savings of California's working and middle class. Its founder, A.P. Giannini, had spent decades arguing that ordinary people, farmers, factory workers, immigrants, deserved access to credit the same as wealthy businessmen. That idea was noble. What came next was not quite as graceful. The man who drew up the Fresno Drop, as it came to be known, was a Bank of America executive named Joseph Williams. His thesis was elegant in theory. If you mailed a ready-to-use credit card to an entire city, not an application, the actual card, enough people would use it to create a self-sustaining revolving credit business. No sales force, no sign-up friction, just saturation. Fresno was the test city because it was big enough to be meaningful and contained enough to be measurable. What Williams had not fully solved was verification. Every one of those 60,000 cards went out pre-approved. The bank had done basic checks against its own customer records, but Fresno had roughly 250,000 residents. A large portion of those cards landed with people the bank had never done business with. Criminals noticed almost immediately. Stolen cards were used before recipients even knew they'd arrived. The fraud that followed wasn't a leak. It was a flood. By the end of 1958, Bank of America had lost approximately $9 million to the Fresno Drop alone, a figure the bank kept quiet for years. Adjusted for inflation, that figure sits north of $90 million today. Merchants were processing cards for purchases that would never be paid. Cardholders were defaulting on balances the bank had handed them without asking. And there was no infrastructure in place to chase any of it down. No central computer, no fraud hotline, clerks reconciling paper receipts by hand. What's striking is that the bank did not stop. Senior leadership at Bank of America absorbed the losses, labeled them the cost of market creation, and pushed the program into Los Angeles, San Francisco, and Sacramento. Within 2 years, the BankAmericard was live across California. The strategy was a bet that scale would eventually outrun the chaos. That if enough legitimate customers were using the card, the fraud would shrink to a manageable percentage. It was a reasonable theory. It was also only partially right. The fraud problem did stabilize, slowly, but a second structural crack had opened, one quieter and ultimately more dangerous. Bank of America had recruited a network of smaller banks across the country to issue BankAmericards under license. By the mid-1960s, there were hundreds of them, all carrying the brand, all theoretically following the rules. In practice, Bank of America had almost no enforcement mechanism. Licensees were issuing cards aggressively, running their own drops, and compounding the same fraud dynamics in new cities. The licensing arrangement that was supposed to make BankAmericard a national brand had instead made it a franchise the franchisor couldn't control. By the late 1960s, an estimated 100 million unsolicited credit cards had been mailed across the United States. Congress eventually banned the practice in 1970, but the damage was already embedded in millions of households. The American consumer had been handed a revolving debt instrument before the industry had any real way to manage the risk of one. The deeper wound for Bank of America was the loss of the thing it had built. In 1970, unable to manage the chaos of the licensing network and facing mounting pressure from its own licensees, the bank spun the BankAmericard program into an independent cooperative owned by its member banks. That cooperative eventually renamed itself. The new name was Visa. Bank of America had invented the modern credit card, built the network from scratch, absorbed the early losses, and then watched as the industry it created walked out the door as a separate company worth, today, hundreds of billions of dollars. There's a version of this story where Bank of America is simply reckless, a giant that moved fast and broke things, including itself. But the more precise reading is different. The bank understood the product. It understood the market. What it failed to architect was governance, the systems, the controls, the enforcement mechanisms that would have let it hold what it built. The Fresno Drop wasn't the fatal decision. The fatal decision was treating infrastructure as an afterthought while the empire was still being constructed. Bank of America survived. It is still one of the largest financial institutions on earth, but it spends billions of dollars a year accepting Visa payments on cards it no longer controls, running on a network it invented, generating wealth for a company it gave away. The crack in the foundation wasn't the fraud in Fresno. It was the assumption that inventing something is the same as owning it. History, as it turns out, keeps meticulous records on that distinction.